I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking to an amazing author. Her name is Hyatt Moore, and she has written a wonderful novel, Winds of Eruna. It is part of a trilogy that takes readers on an extraordinary journey into a fantastical world replete with winged children, mythical creatures, and grand adventures. Her artful storytelling showcases richly developed characters and landscapes exploring themes of destiny, love, rebellion, and self-discovery across the 8 realms of Eruna. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Authors Tranquility Press for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Kathy, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Let's start out with the big picture. Let's tell the folks at home what the book is all about.
Actually, there's two books. There's Winds of Eruna, book one, which is called A Flight of Wings, where I introduce all the characters. And you learn of their character, their honor, their plights. There's evil, there's good. But book two really gets into it. It's called Winds of Eruna, book two, A Flight of Dragons. Okay. So there's also dragons in this book. And it starts out right off the bat with quite a bit of excitement, quite a bit of danger, quite a bit of discovery. So I think readers are going to enjoy it. And we're in the proofreading phase right now on book two, but book one has been published and it's out there if anybody's interested. And I hope they are. And hopefully this will help today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me how you came up with this idea for this unique world.
Well, as a child, I would have dreams that I was flying. And I started out life as an analytical chemist, and then children started coming, and I had 4. And so I decided to stay home. My husband was also a chemist. And we moved all over the world. We've lived in Italy, Scotland, Saudi Arabia. We've traveled all over the world. And I had always enjoyed English and writing as much as I did chemistry and the sciences. And I told my children, I think I'm going to write a book about this, because I had been thinking about it for years. Right. And my middle son said, you'll never do it. Well, when the first book came out, I signed it for him and handed it to him. And I said, don't ever say your mom won't or can't.
Exactly. Those are the wrong words to say to your mom. That's a challenge right there.
That's a challenge. And what I did was I've used my experiences traveling over the world in this book. I've used the relationships that I've seen in this book. And it's good, clean fantasy. It's high fantasy with just a touch of dark fantasy because of the evil queen and other evil characters that are in the book.
Absolutely. Let's talk about one of the characters right off the bat. I'm hopefully saying her name right. Ulu.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about her youthful innocence, yet she has grave responsibilities placed upon her.
Yes, she does. She talks her grandfather into traveling from the far north, where the ice is, all the way south, because she wants to go to Cliffside School. She had foreseen it, and she decided that that's what she wanted to do. And so her grandfather and several warriors that volunteered go with her traveling south. And a lot of things happen to her along the way. She's very gifted in magic, and but she wants to learn more. She wants to become what's called a wind dancer, and she wants to study magic that the 8 realms has to offer. So we follow her through the first book all the way down, and she actually meets 2 other main characters, Lynette and Duran, who are life mated, and she meets them as they have their offspring. They have a baby, and that's where Ulu comes into the picture, and they all join together, and they find out through Ulu's presence that there's going to be an attack on Cliffside School. So they decide to take a journey back to the school to sort of prepare the people at the school for the coming attack.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
It all feels very real. It all feels kind of timeless, which is what I like as well. Who are your influences?
well, my husband's relationship with our firstborn grandchild, which was a girl,
Mhm.
I observed them and the love that they had and the concern they had for one another.
Mhm.
Um, Also, the love story between Lynette and Jordan, I sort of took that from my own experiences with my husband.
Mhm.
He died last March, a year ago,
Sorry.
March, and I miss him greatly, but
Yeah.
I think he would be proud that I am continuing to go on and write because he always encouraged me and was my biggest fan. So
Yeah.
I've used those experiences. I've also used the experience of my relationship with my grandfathers. Um,
Mhm.
so I just bring my life experience into
Yeah.
my writing, and the thing that I try to show right off the bat is that there are different cultures, there are different ways of thinking, and that's okay. You don't have to be afraid or antagonistic towards someone who is not like you. You
Yeah.
can embrace them, you can love them, you can understand them, and you can be kind. And so I sort of show this throughout the book and the
Yeah.
development of honor and good character by comparing it with dishonor and bad character.
Yeah, yeah. Well, those themes of good and evil are very well flushed out in your book, and I think they are what make it interesting, in part at least. Question I had for you is, of all the countries you traveled in, you've learned a lot, I'm sure, about different cultures, different people. Is there a favorite country? And is there, other than the United States, of course,
Yes.
and is there a country that stands out? Like when you told me all the countries you lived in, I'd say, aha, Scotland is what influenced this book the most. Tell me what your greatest influences were among all the countries that you've traveled in and lived in.
Well, actually, I loved Italy. I
Mhm.
speak fluent Italian. I studied German in college, so I also speak German. Um,
Mhm.
I did not learn Arabic when we lived in Saudi Arabia because I developed lung cancer, non-smokers lung cancer. So I had to fly home for that, for chemotherapy and treatment and everything. That was in 2014, and I'm a survivor. I
Mhm.
survived it. And so I really like Italy. We had a ski apartment up in the Dolomite area where Alberto Tomba, the Italian Olympic skier, did his training. And we would go up every weekend. We lived in a little community called Monza, right
Mhm.
across from the Formula One track, the Parco di Monza. And I just used all my experiences, like the mountains and the beauty, the snow, quite a bit of the beginning story of Ulu and her grandfather, and the clans. I took from my memory of skiing in the mountains, way up high. It was like
Mhm.
1,200 feet elevation. So
Wonderful, wonderful. The world you created seems inspired by various mythologies. Can you talk about specific legends or mythologies that influenced the creation of Aruna, or was it pure inspiration, or were you borrowing a little bit here and there from Greek mythology, for example, and so forth?
no, although I've studied all that, I just plucked it straight from my brain. I
Yeah.
just let it flow out. And that's sort of the way I began the book, was just, what would I like to do? Oh, I'd love to fly.
Yeah.
And also the giant trees that are on the planet of Aruna. I came up with that idea long before Avatar did. And in fact, the giant trees in my imagination are even much larger, so large that buildings are built on the limbs of these gigantic trees. And in the first book, I talk about the three trees of Cliffside School, and they are extremely enormous trees where the students go to study. So
Yeah, amazing. Tell me a little bit about the dragons that are included in your story and how do you envision their role? And,
Okay, well, one of the evil characters named Morin um, tried to do a spell in dark magic and it backfired on him and burned him terribly, destroyed his wings, and threw him into a void. And he is sent back by an evil demon that's there, along with an infant dragon,
Mhm.
which he named Death. And the dragon grew after eating a bunch of characters,
Mm.
grew to become quite large. And there are some characters called the Malacan, these reptilian characters, and they have a lot to do with the dragons and dragon history. So there's a surprising way in which dragons come back into the world of Eruna to help defend it from Morin and the his dragon Death, and the evil demon Sarnak, who wants to open a portal into Eruna. So that is sort of where the dragons come in to help protect the school, protect Eruna.
Let's talk a little bit about your storytelling. You decided to tell the story from various perspectives. Were there challenges you faced in ensuring that each voice felt unique and authentic?
Not really. I just sort of imagined myself as that character, and I took on their specific character traits, and then I wrote from that platform. I sort of
Mm.
identified myself with the character, and then wrote from that platform. Even the evil characters, I took their traits and sort of personified them, and then I wrote from that aspect. Sort of like actors who go into characters
Yeah.
before they come on the screen. So
Exactly. Exactly. How'd you like living in that world that you were creating when you were writing it every day? You know, all of a sudden you're in Aruna, you're imagining the trees, you're imagining the dragons, you're imagining everything. And it really kind of consumes you, I know. So tell me
yes,
about it, what it was like. And did you enjoy living in that world? Did you enjoy
yes, I
writing in that
did.
world?
I really enjoyed that world. It's a beautiful world. It's with the giant trees, and there are also unwinged people who are derogatively known as grubs, but they prefer to be called land dwellers,
Hmm.
and they live in between the roots of these giant trees. They have little homes, and in one respect, they are subservient to the winged society. Um, but one of the main characters, named Lynette, she's also the daughter of the High Matriarch, who is a very evil queen of the Eight Realms. Um, she has a different perspective because of the influence of her father to respect all life, to respect even the unwinged, and to treat them as equals.
Mm.
So we sort of see that develop throughout the book, the rise of the unwinged people. Um, so life as an unwinged person is not necessarily that great, but there are characters that are making the best of it, and so we bring them into the book too.
Yep. And a lot of the characters are going through a journey of self-discovery. Was that intentional or just kind of came about in the writing process?
It was actually intentional. I wanted to show the development of characters, and give my readers a sense that, hey, you have a choice. You have a choice on how you treat other people. You have a choice on your future, on where you go, what you do, how you treat others. And you can either go the bad way or the good way. And so I try to develop that in my book, and bring the readers along with me to show them that, hey, it's okay to be different.
Mm.
It's okay to love different people. Um, that's really what we're all about. I believe that's why we're here on the planet. We are to love others, treat them with kindness, help those that need help, and be a good person. I am a Christian, and so I do take from that experience quite a lot in my character development too. And the books, there is a religion in the book. They do worship the wind, some of them do. And so I try to incorporate my Christian experience in writing about that. So I
That's
hope I
great.
answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. How long did it take you to write it? And when did you start? When did you finish? That kind of thing.
Well, it had been around in my mind for many years.
Right.
And once my children all grew up and got out of the house, then I began to write. And what I did, this was in about 2017, I paced myself. I decided, well, actually, it was published in 2017. I actually began writing it in about 2014. And I set myself the goal of writing an hour a day, except Sundays. And I would just sit down at my computer and just write. And
Mhm.
fortunately, my youngest son was an English tutor and writing tutor at a university, as well as an adjunct professor there. So he did a lot of critiquing for me. He did a lot of proofreading for me. So he really helped me in the grammatical realm. So
And I
yeah,
presume he was your first reader then, because he was helping you with the editing process.
actually, my husband was my first reader,
Okay.
but he was more engineer minded, um,
Right.
whereas my
Right.
youngest son was more literary minded.
And were you giving it to your husband chapter by chapter to get his approval or get his opinion or get his reaction?
Actually, I waited until I had it written, and then I handed it to him, and he read it and
Wow.
offered suggestions and advice, and sort of that's also sort of what I did with my son. I just sent him the whole thing, and then we would work on it chapter by chapter together. We would use Google Docs, and we would go back and forth, making improvements, getting all the tenses correct, getting all the grammar correct, making sure that everything was consistent concerning the characters and the happenings. So it was just an interesting process.
Yeah,
So we're
absolutely.
sort of going through that now with book two.
How is book two is ready to be published or
Yes,
almost done? Yes,
well,
ready to be published.
we're still proofreading and editing, and
Right.
I expect that should take about a month, and then it'll be on the market. That's the
So,
plan.
sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Which influences you more when it comes to writing? Other writers, filmmakers, TV show producers? Do you feel like you're more inspired by visual mediums or written?
Actually, I take my inspiration directly from my brain. I don't.
Yeah,
I try not to let other books and other um, venues or media affect my story.
right.
I have an idea of where I want to go, how I want things to happen, who I want to do what. So actually, no, I don't take any inspiration from outside sources.
Oh,
And you did mention that initially it was planned to be a trilogy, but I can foresee writing book after book after book, taking this in a progression. So it may be more than a trilogy. I hope so.
that's great. That's great. Well, you like I said, in your mind, you love living in Aruna, so why end it? It
Exactly.
seems like there's endless possibilities and endless stories that could evolve. Have you envisioned this as a film or a TV show or a series or something?
Oh, absolutely. That would be wonderful. I think people would really enjoy seeing people fly
Yeah,
and the interactions that they have and the creatures that I've created in my books. There's so many different creatures that I introduce that are very interesting. Also, there's lots of different people that I introduce that are really interesting. And I think if it were a movie or a TV show, there's plenty of material from which to draw a script.
agreed. Agreed. I think it could be a series of movies even. And
Yes.
it is very visual. It would be a wonder to create it. And I'd imagine it'd be a thrill to watch it as well. Let's talk a little bit about the winged and the wingless societies that you created. Why did you decide to have distinctions between those with wings, those without wings? Was it kind of a metaphor for the disparities among people or the prejudices among people here in our society?
Yes, it. I wanted to show the relationship between the two uh, societies, and I wanted to develop each one uniquely so that people could see that it's okay to interact with those that are different from you, and in a future book, I will explain why there are winged and why there are unwinged, and how they came to be, on the planet of Eruna. That will be developed in a future book. And I'm also going to develop the way the unwinged break loose from their servitude to the winged society. So that's sort of a future plan.
Exactly. May the winds watch over them. Those are some of the phrases you implore during your writing. It kind of created almost like a biblical feel about it. Was that the intention, to make this feel kind of eternal, kind of?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. There's two different, there's several different societies. There's the clans from the far north, from which Ulu comes. They have their specific beliefs, but they also worship the wind. They have a different name for the wind. From the winged people in the Eight Realms and the northern provinces, they also have a different way of worshiping. Eventually, there's going to be an introduction of another society that will make their appearance probably in the third book, which I'm just beginning to write. I have it all scoped out in my brain. For example, there's the assassins, and where they train and what they do and how they are interspersed, and also the monarchies. There are matriarchs and patriarchs, and they take their names from their trees, like Tree Artis and Tree Aldrin, and they all have different characters, different ways of interacting with the world. So I wanted to show that also.
There's also levity in the book. Ulu's actions, like painting eyebrows on people, add humor to the story. Tell us a little bit about incorporating some of these humorous elements.
Well, I don't want my readers to think, oh my goodness, this is just too dark. This is boring. So, I have a vivid sense of humor. So I incorporated that into my writing. I wanted to bring some levity, because there is some darkness in the book. There's some very evil characters. There's no foul language. I don't think that young readers need to be exposed to that. And I sort of invent my own curse words, like, oh, blast it, blast the winds. That's sort of the type of words that I use. And as far as the religion goes, it's really a reflection of Christianity. It's also a reflection of Islam. Having lived in Saudi Arabia, I became very acquainted with the Muslim people. I still have Muslim friends that I speak with, and I can speak a little bit of Arabic. So whenever I see a Muslim woman in the United States, I will say Assalamu alaikum to her, and touch my heart to let her know that, hey, we're sisters. I may be a Christian, you may be a Muslim, but that does not mean we cannot be friends, that we cannot love each other and be kind to one another and help one another. So I really enjoy different cultures and interacting with them. And so I do try to incorporate that into my writing.
Absolutely. And that respect for other cultures resonates throughout your work.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about choosing among children here. You wrote the first book, Winds of Eruna, and the second book is called?
A Flight of Dragons.
A Flight of Dragons. Now, you created the world in Winds of Eruna, and now you have the Flight of Dragons. After having created the scaffolding in the first book, which book do you prefer? Which book do you like more? Which book do you enjoy more?
Book two is by far better. My husband read book one and book two, and he said, oh, well, this one is so much better than the first one. And also my son proofreading says, wow, Mom, I didn't know you had all this imagination. So they like the second book a lot better. And I'm hoping that the third book's even better as I develop myself as a writer. So I'm still an infant as far as writing goes. I'm learning.
Well, you're doing great. You're not taking baby steps. You're taking giant steps. The book
Thank you.
that I read, Winds of Eruna, is wonderful. It was supposed to be part of a trilogy. It might go beyond that. It's an amazing book. It's a fantastical journey into a wonderful world filled with winged people and children, mythical creatures, and grand adventures. This is a book you're not going to want to miss, and you're going to be very, very happy that Kathy Hyatt Moore is coming out with a second book, and then later a third, and perhaps a fourth, and more. Kathy, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
I enjoyed.
I want to thank authors, Tranquility Press, and Rob Gonzalez for setting this up for me. So kudos to them and kudos to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. They are a good group. I enjoy working with them as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.